Rain tapped the smudged windows of the old library, its rhythmic patter muffled by the thick stone walls that had stood for nearly 2 centuries. Eliza stepped over a worn rug that had long since lost its color, the scent of must and neglected books clinging to the stagnant air. She ran her fingers along the spines of arcane tomes shelved haphazardly, some titles faded or written in languages she didn't recognize. The deeper recesses of the library were cast in shadow, where the dim overhead lights failed to reach, and the ancient floorboards groaned with every step. She had taken a leave from work to sift through the estate left by her late aunt, the head librarian who vanished 3 years prior without a trace somewhere within this very building. Her belongings remained untouched, as if waiting for Eliza to piece together a puzzle no one else dared acknowledge. Behind the main reading hall was a locked corridor marked, "Personnel Only." A rusted key tucked among her aunt's effects matched the tarnished bronze latch. The lock resisted at first, but with a sharp turn it yielded, the door creaking open with a sound like tearing fabric. Dust swirled in the stale light as Eliza entered. Offices lined the narrow hallway, some doors ajar, papers scattered within, their contents brittle and faded. At the far end, a spiral staircase descended into a part of the building she hadn't known existed. Despite an instinctual tightening in her chest, Eliza felt compelled to descend. As she did, the air grew cooler, heavier, the silence deepened into unrest, like something beneath was listening. The steps spiraled longer than they should have, a disorienting descent that seemed to warp time, until she reached a corridor that hadn't seen footsteps for decades. Vaulted shelves towered on either side, filled with handwritten journals, all neatly labeled with dates spanning over 100 years. Some covers bore fingerprints embedded in the grime, though the dust was perfectly settled. Eliza pulled one marked May 1976. The ink had barely faded, its prose unnervingly formal as it described the thoughts of a man slowly convinced that voices whispered behind the walls, urging him to sever connections to the waking world. Each page darkened in tone, the handwriting derailing into erratic confession. More journals followed the same pattern, unsuspecting librarians slipping into obsession, each drawn to this place like moths to a hidden pulse within the stone. Eliza's breath quickened as she realized some of the names matched former employees, all noted as missing or presumed dead. Yet the journals chronicled their thoughts in detail long past the dates of their disappearance. A low thud sounded behind her, not loud but definitive. She froze. Not wind, not a settling building, something deliberate. Turning quickly, her eyes scanned the rows. No movement, yet she felt the shifting pressure in the room, like an unseen breath passing over her skin. Shadows danced longer than the flickering overhead light should allow. She continued along the corridor until she came to a final barred door, this one newer, steel-reinforced and bearing a plaque that read, "Scriptorium." The journals spoke of the Scriptorium with religious reverence, as though it were a sanctum or prison depending on who had written. Something behind that door had drawn them, each of them, like it was alive, like it chose who could enter. Eliza didn't intend to open it, at least not yet. Her hand trembled as she touched the cool surface, and the whisper came, not from behind the door, but from within her own ears, murmuring her name as though it had always known it. Rushing back up the stairs, Eliza fought rising nausea. The staircase now felt endless and inverted, spiraling her farther down no matter how quickly she climbed. She reached into her coat pocket for the key to retrace her exit when her fingers brushed against paper, the journal she thought she'd placed back on the shelf. But now it bore her name on the cover. Heart-hammering, she flipped it open and found crisp entries detailing every step she'd taken since arriving. The final page was blank except for one sentence. "You're almost ready." The paper seemed to twitch in her hands, the ink still damp. Overwhelmed, she shoved it back into her pocket and ran. When she finally burst into the main library, it was not as she left it, chairs arranged differently, books she had examined replaced, and worst of all, outside, the sky was pitch black though it had been early afternoon. Eliza tried the front door, it wouldn't budge. She shouted, her voice muffled by the heavy stone walls, echoed back with a slight delay that didn't quite match her words. As she turned, every seat in the reading hall was now occupied, figures hunched over books, unmoving, absorbed. She approached one and found a mirror in place of a face, reflecting her own disturbed expression. Then she saw her aunt among them, or someone wearing her face, eyes vacant but wide. She held a journal identical to Eliza's, open to the same blank page. Slowly, one by one, the figures began to turn toward her, not to speak, not to move, but simply to stare. And from the back of the library, behind the locked scriptorium door, came the sound of chains unraveling.